The key to success on the field and in your backyard is a comprehensive game plan. So if you're building a fence or a deck this year, trust a Turkstra coach to design, quote, or order the right materials for your project. Visit a Turkstra Lumber near you to learn more.
From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker.
Hello and welcome to the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker. Coach, you guys are back in town from Winnipeg. Long road trip. Had the rain and the storm delay. Kind of not the easiest trip, and of course, not the outcome that you were hoping for. Take me right into the locker room post game. What was the message to the team, and what was the energy and demeanor?
Well, the guys were hurt. I think that it was painful. I think frustration wasn't really the energy that I felt. I just felt that, they know that we're a few plays away from making an impact in the win column. And so that's really what it was. It's always reserved after the locker room to review the tape. It's easy to just point the fingers at certain things. And, it's one of those cases where the game was a little bit closer than the score. They made some plays at the end to make it look a little bit lopsided, but I think there was an unfortunate play at the end of the half where we just missed the screen there, and obviously they capitalized with under a minute to go, and Dembski made a great catch, and so at that point we were ahead 9-7, and the momentum swung heading into the half, but there was so much football left to be played, and so credit them, they beat us, and but we feel like we aided it a little bit, but that's football. Yeah,
my experience with you as a head coach was if a team is giving effort, if our teams were giving effort, I don't remember an energy or a message of really disappointment or I guess anger. Is that sort of still is that kind of how you address your team? I mean, you were always a very you played for a long time. You're a Hall of Fame CFL player, so you struck me as a guy who understands what it's like to be maybe berated or yelled at after a loss. Is that sort of still your mentality towards your teams?
Yeah, it's they're people first, and you're gonna find. I don't even really know if I can even recall a time when a player goes out there trying to mess up. Mm-hmm. And I know that simply stated, but it's just the truth. Like, if they're doing what we ask, to the best of their ability, physical mistakes are going to be, those are going to be tolerated to a point. It's the mental ones that'll be continually challenged, that, those type of things. But, I feel like you turn our tape on and, we're a physical football team that, has, we haven't put up the points that we'd like to, but there's a collection of things that happen when that happens. It's not a one stage type of deal where you can say this is exactly what it is. There's areas on the football field we have to play better if we want to consistently win. And some of those things are controllable and some of them aren't. And so, it's a long-winded answer to, the approach is still positive. I still am, but we're not going to brush anything under the rug. We will, we'll always address the elephant in the room, if it needs to be. But, most of the time it doesn't call for that. But if it does, we always, we can be a little stern when we need to.
Mm-hmm. The last week in our show, I asked if that Calgary loss at Tim Hortons Field felt a little different than the week 1 loss in Sask. What about this week in Winnipeg? Is there a sense of despair or anger growing, or is it not that way?
I can just give you my perspective, and what I can see is what nobody else sees. I see people early for meetings. I see people with their notepads open. I see attentive eyes. I see coaches coaching their ass off. I see personnel people digging. I see equipment people slagging bags off the truck. I see therapists working overtime, visiting the second floor. I see video people doing whatever they can do. That's what I see. And that's not always the case, even on winning teams. And so does that mean that it's not a a zero-sum game when it comes to wins and losses. No, of course it is. That's what it's about. It's a sports entertainment business, but it is about wins and losses. I've been doing this long enough to know that if you do things the right way with the right effort and you have enough talent, it'll turn.
Yeah. So that must give you hope. I mean, going forward, that you've got a building full of people kind of going the extra mile.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that I'd say they've turned the thermostat up a little bit, but I'd say that they had that approach since training camp. It's a different feeling when, I think, being up 24 points and not closing the deal. I've been part of those comebacks before, but I haven't been on the other side of it. So I think it was a new feeling for everybody in the building when you were talking about the Calgary one. But you've been around me long enough to know that we'll definitely look in the rearview mirror to get better, but we're always going to be looking out the windshield to the future.
Mm-hmm. The turnovers, obviously, it's part of the storyline for the wins and losses. There's been one CFL game this year, one that was won by the team who turned the ball over more times than the opponent. Every other game was either a tied in the turnover battle or the team who turned it over more lost, as usually happens. Is there a coaching strategy with turnovers? Because I think to your average fan, it comes down to one person's personal effort or execution when it's their turn to handle the football for the team. But from your place on the sidelines, from your place in the meetings, what can be talked about? What can be said to a team about this?
Just that it does affect outcomes. If there's one analytic that you want to pay attention to or one statistic, it's definitely that. And I think that's been, it's stood over the test of time. And there's always exceptions to the majority of rules. And that is, you referred to one single game, but the majority of the time it's going to affect the outcome of the game. And hey, listen, Luke, for 3 quarters, we had no sacks and we had no turnovers. Right. And, at the same time, we got to take the ball away a little bit more and timely, type of things. But when you're talking about that, so I thought we did, it's been addressed. I think specifically to your comment, yeah, it's emphasized in practice. Listen, there isn't a practice I've ever been a part of or a team where there's no interceptions. You'd like to not see any fumbles in practice since there's no contact. You don't want to see lazy ball security, and that's emphasized. But at the end of the day, you're practicing to perform, and that's the player's job, is to perform. And so you can't play for them, but it is our job to prepare them. And so we do take those steps in practice, and we overemphasize things, and we'll continue to do it until the tide turns.
The constantly in football and in our team meetings when I was around there, and I'm sure still to this day, there is the discussion or the identification of things that go into the category of controllable and things in the uncontrollable. You mentioned kind of some of that. It's the factors that cause a win or a loss come from both of those categories, but the way where you have to put your mindset and your focus is all on those controllable factors. In Winnipeg, was there a number of uncontrollable? Was there a number of uncontrollables that stand out in your mind that were maybe part of the way that game went? That's a great question, and I'm not sure I have a great answer. I can just say that I felt like the thing that's great is that there are some games that you've turned on and the ball game's over. And we haven't been out of any ball games, and most of these games are going to come down to the last quarter, maybe the last 5-7 minutes. That's the way it's just kind of has been historically, and with the exception of the times when you're not in them. And that's the goal, is to be in every football game, but you got to close them out. We're not in the business of close, we're in the business of winning. But if you just focus on that, you just tighten everybody up. You got to be focused on the process and the stepping stones to get that done. And we're grinding. We're grinding, and I'm encouraged, and we're still going to have fun. Winning is fun. Let's not get it twisted, but we're still going to enjoy, putting on this mean face and clenching your fists doesn't guarantee wins. But at the same time, we're not going to be, just let things be loose and
free and act like, everything's okay.
Yeah.
So, there's that fine line. And I told you I didn't have a great answer because, the things that we controlled, for example, a slant to a receiver that a DB makes a great hit. Mm-hmm. I know you with a lot of pride says, hey, I got to hold on to that. And then there's a time when if it was your DB that made it, you'd say, oh, hell of a play. And so, is that controllable or uncontrollable? I don't know. It probably depends who you ask. And then, you'll have somebody say, well, it was the ball. And then what was it great DB play? And was it bad ball security by the receiver? So what I'd like to say is, and this, Luke, you've been in them. Did you make every play you could make? Everybody can't. Every play is not for everybody. So when it comes to your time, some people are, as you've heard me say it more times than you probably care to hear, but here's one more. And that is, some of you are going to have 15 opportunities to make a play, and some of you are only going to have 2. And I don't care what you grade out as a position group. If you had 2 opportunities and you didn't make any, you grade out 0%. If you made 2, it's 100%. That's the beauty of the team game. Make your play when it comes.
That's very well said. And boy, it makes me think back to a lot of games that slipped away for little things. I remember I had a great game in Toronto one time, and Zach Caleros threw me 10 catches, but one of them skipped off my hands as I got hit in over the middle, and it was an interception, and we lost. I mean, and that's kind of what I remembered about that game, even though I had played great. But the one that you could say, maybe it was a catch that I make other times, or maybe Ray Emery or whoever it was hit me just the right time that the ball skipped out. So, boy, it is complex, and it is the best team sport there is. I'll say that.
But you would have graded out 90% there.
Yeah.
90%.
90,
but
yeah.
That's what made you great. That's what made you great, though, Luke. Yeah. Like, you remember that, and it wasn't about you dropping it. It was about letting the team down, and that's what made you great, man.
Well, let's not get down that rabbit hole, because I have a couple other ones I remember, too.
Just one a week. One a week is all we're doing. We're at our quota.
Okay. I'll share dropping the hold in Calgary next week on the Coach O Show. So be sure to tune in. On the turnover discussion, here's a stat for you that is a glimpse of hope or a movement in the right direction, I should say. The turnover ratio is at +5 and a total of 11, but each game has progressed with fewer and fewer turnovers. So, and that's from an offensive standpoint. And the defense, like you said, you addressed, that's part of the ratios too. And I get stuck in my offensive mindset of just thinking, let's not turn the ball over. But there's that side of the ratio as well, where you want to get more takeaways. But offensively, there's been fewer and fewer as the game progresses. But this is the thing that's jumping out to me as RJ and I are calling these games. The Ticats, in my opinion, have had the quirkiest stretch of turnovers. It's not like you have a quarterback that has the turnover bug. You just can't help but throw interceptions. And everyone's seen a team where a quarterback is really week after week making really poor decisions. And not to say that Dane has had perfect games, but the last 3 interceptions have bounced off of Hamilton players as well. And give it to the Winnipeg defenders and the timeliness of those hits. Adam Big Hill's hit across the middle with Dunbar was a really, really well-timed tackle. So you got to give it to that, but that's quirky. And so in my mind, when I'm watching this, I say, well, for as many times as that happens and the ball gets turned over, there's going to be one this season that goes our direction with that turnover, or one that pops off of Dunbar's hands and then Tim White catches it, or something weird like that. You don't want to have it weigh too heavy on you in the negative there. And so I don't know. If you ask RJ Broadhead, RJ says he has no worries about the season. He is unbelievably hopeful and positive about the Hamilton Tiger Cats right now. And the turnover ratio, to me, doesn't tell the full story. Quickly, let's have a word for our sponsors here. The Coach O Show is presented by Turkstra Lumber. If you're thinking of tackling a project in your home, talk to a project coach from Turkstra Lumber. They can help with everything from ordering a new front door to designing a new fence or deck. Do it yourself does not mean do it alone. Visit TurkstraLumber.com to learn more. So, Coach, on the hopeful right direction discussion here for your 2022 team, give me some more things. What's moving in the right direction here? Because there really are a few. And yes, the 0-3 is the most important stats, but there are some things that are going right. What are you praising your team for right now?
effort, staying together, getting better on the things that we've emphasized week to week. You know, we'd obviously emphasize winning, but that's always the end goal, right? But we don't, as you know, we don't end watch. Winning is a byproduct of doing all the little things throughout a football game that you might possibly take for granted when you get a lot of wins. You know, and when we were, 15-3, just as easily we could have been 17-1.
True.
There was quirky things that happened that year. We also had a great comeback in two of those games. So sometimes you get those bounces, sometimes you don't. Right now we haven't got those, and so I'm encouraged by the people. I'm encouraged by the things that don't show up for the casual fan. Not even the casual fan, just any fan, really. I understand they pay to watch entertainment, and I love the passion, especially here, at home. I'm biased, but that carries on a day or two after, when they're cutting their grass and they're shaking their head, but they're shaking their head with the Ticat hat on. They're not throwing it away. Right. They're passionate, and I love that, and they want to see a winner, and we will win, and that's just part of the deal. So I'm just encouraged of how everybody's rolling up their sleeves, going to work, and doesn't matter who's on the schedule the next week. We're going out there prepared to win, and ultimately it's got to show up in the standings.
Yeah, that's great. The and in a tangible sense as well, the Ticats came away with 4 sacks in Winnipeg. And going into that game, people were talking about that was a shortcoming of Mark Washington's defense in the first 2 games, and things like that working right. I assume, and we all hope, that Brandon Revenberg will maybe be healthy for this game. That's something that's going to look better for the Ticats. Obviously, there's been some struggles on the offensive line. Today, the team was not on the field, correct?
Correct.
Talk to me a little bit about your mindset of the shorter practice weeks, and obviously the emphasis on maybe player health.
Well, that's what it is. It's taking a temperature of your football team, and weighing the risks of going out there and whatnot, or spending some extra classroom time. We haven't been relatively healthy on the O-line. I think Chris Van Zyl probably has more starts than the other 4 combined. And I know he's played a while, but it's and then you pull Revenberg out of there, and you can have a tough go. And so is it more important that they practice and be on their feet for 2 hours, or is it more important for them to be healthy and mentally prepared? And everybody can have their own opinion. For this week, we felt like the best opportunity for us to put our best foot forward was to get a little bit more classroom time, figure out where we're going to be, and then we'll ramp it up tomorrow.
From the player in me, it's not just the health of just the ongoing grind of the season, but it's kind of trying to get on an airplane at whatever it was, 2 a.m. or whenever you guys flew out of Winnipeg, come home, get in your bed at 5 a.m. and then have to get up to practice the next day. I mean, in my mind, that decision gets made because of that rain delay, because of the trip in general. And I got to think that there's some players who are thankful for physically for that rest. I know I would have been. Maybe my first year I could have said no. I would have practiced just as well as I would have rested, but not since then. So I'm guessing that's a player friendly decision. If I had to speak from my own experience, get ready for Edmonton. You're going up against a team who's also 0-3. I think you could probably argue that some of their losses, maybe particularly against Sask, were a little bit more of a solidified loss. Like you said, the Ticats have been in each of the 3 games they played, but the point is Edmonton's struggling. I don't know about you as a head coach, as a player. When I was going against a team who was struggling, even if we were, let's say, 0-3 and 0-3, it was very easy for me to say these guys are bad and we're just going to make sure that they keep losing. And that logic's not really sound, right? I mean, that the records are the same, but it's the power of positive thinking. In your mind, are the stars aligning for the Ticats to get their first win? Does this week feel like the one for you?
Well, last week felt like the one for me.
That's good.
And the one before for sure did.
Yeah.
And opening week felt like it. So, and that's not to dance around. That's the truth.
I believe you.
There's too much time put into it by everybody involved to, half step it. And I feel like the preparation has been there. You're always reevaluating, trying to be innovative and creative, but also fundamentally sound in what we're doing in our approach. When it comes to this week, it's not really, and I know you were just using it as a term, but it's not even a matter of stars aligning. I mean, we could be playing an undefeated team. We could be playing whoever, and it would have to align because we're going to play the next game on the schedule. And it just so happens that, there is going to be some media around the records and something's got to give and with that, but that's just the way it's happened. I think if you ask both of us, we'd rather be 3-0 and have that headline, or have anything but what we have right now. But that's the hand we've been dealt. So I don't really have a comment for the stars aligning. I just know that we're preparing for them like they're not 0-3. What I have seen on tape from Edmonton is, they've gotten better each week too. Mm-hmm. I know they've made a lot of personnel adjustments. And so, I've been around Chris Jones long enough that he'll have his ball club prepared. And but we won't, as you know, Luke, we don't focus too much on the opponent outside of some base things that they're doing. The focus remains on ourselves and our own execution.
I'm sure we'll see our dose of cover zero, as is tradition with their head coach there. Fans, on Friday, the Ticats are going to honor Dave Stala as the alumnus of distinction. He'll be a guest as well on a special edition of Task and Twos with myself and Andy Fantus that'll release this week on the Ticats Audio Network. Dave and actually his daughter are going to lead the team onto the field for Friday's game, and he'll be included in some of our broadcasts, and we'll kind of have him on and off the Ticat Audio Network game day coverage in a bunch of different ways. So classic CFL great and Hamilton, maybe I'll say legend, Sticky Stala, one of the first players I met when I came up to the CFL for the 2013 season, and he and his daughter are going to have the Hammer jerseys on to run the team out. So
awesome. Great
day for a Ticat football game. That'll be this weekend at Tim Hortons Field. Coach, I always appreciate our weekly show and looking forward to a great game this weekend for you and your team.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. And thanks, Luke. It's always a good time, buddy.
Another episode of the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker is in the books. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Coach O and Luke are back next week to discuss the latest from the locker room. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.